we are sitting here in the grounds of Worcester College, Oxford. It's a college right in the heart of the city, and yet invisible. Behind a medieval wall lies a 26-acre park, complete with its own lake and orchards. This is an exhibition of outdoor contemporary sculpture situated through a remarkable hidden garden. My name's Iwona Blazwick, and I'm co-curator of Sculpture in the Garden, The Storytellers.
My name is Katie Delamere, and I am co-curator of Sculpture in the Garden, The Storytellers.
This is an exhibition of outdoor contemporary sculpture situated through a remarkable hidden garden. And we are sitting here in the grounds of Worcester College, Oxford. It's a college right in the heart of the city, and yet invisible. Behind a medieval wall lies a 26-acre park, complete with its own lake and orchards. This is one of a series of curatorial projects that I've been involved in, which involve placing art in the landscape. Most recently, a project in Al Ula in Saudi Arabia called Desert X, where we invite artists to make work in sandstone canyons, where the only vegetation are a few acacia trees. And this, by contrast, is one of the most lush environments I've ever worked in. Worcester College, Oxford is also unique in the variety of different kinds of planting and composition and colour as we go on our journey through this exhibition. And it also has a very rich history. Founded in the 13th century as a Benedictine abbey, it only became a college in the 18th century, and from there has built up a singular reputation around the world for its scholarship. Alongside that development has come the arrival of some extraordinary architecture. We start the exhibition in a quad, which is framed by medieval cottages on one side and a Nicholas Hawksmoor building on the other. And this change of terrain. And secondly, of course, it has a very dynamic community of young people and scholars. And it's a community of students who come from all over the world and are here to find their way into the world of knowledge, scholarship, but also adulthood. So it's a very interesting context within which to work. Thirdly, it's a place which has remained secret over the years, and this is one of the rare opportunities where Worcester College will be open to the public throughout the summer.
So Iwona's laid the groundwork for how to engage with this question, but I think that what Worcester offers and what we first encountered on our site visits initially when we began working on the project was, I would say, almost a series of stages or a series of different landscape settings with which to work, because it's got such a range of history, both architecturally and also spatially, because of how the gardens are laid out. So we have the quad with the Hawksmoor and the medieval, which is a very architectonic space. It's very rigid in its layout, and thinking around kind of within that, we've curated works that are in dialogue with one another, looking across this courtyard to each other. And then you move into the Nuffield lawn with its wild, long, winding, long border, vast herbaceous beds and indigenous plants and huge tree-sheltered lawn spaces with big plane trees and oaks and beeches. And then thinking and responding to that as a space and how you place works within that setting is very different to how you would engage with the quad space. And from there you then move to the ornamental lake, which has the beautiful reflective surfaces and the willow-lined pathway, and onwards to the modernist building of the Sultan Nasrin Shah Centre, which is again a completely different stage setting that has these incredible window apertures that create backdrops with which to place beautiful sculpture, and then onwards into the wilds of the bountiful orchard with its countless wizened old apple trees and wildflower meadows and bee huts. So I think here as a space, it's offered so much to work with, and to think about. And I think it's really encouraged us to place sculpture that responds very much to the settings with which you're working within, and also to think too about that, the encounter of the visitor, and think about what happens when you walk through that stone arch and you see the lake, and what happens when you come through the courtyard into the quad, and how you then engage with that space, and how we can place sculpture going back to the traditions of landscape gardens in England and in the Italian Renaissance, and using the sculptures to move the body around these landscapes and help us explore and learn, and have these kind of moments of engagement and stories, and almost performatively with the space of Worcester.
The structure of the exhibition resonates with a kind of activity that's been happening here since 1902, which is the performance of Shakespeare outdoors by a group called the Buskins. And that gave us a starting point thematically, as also Katie's outlined the very different atmosphere of the different parts of our journey, suggested immediately the idea of making it a dramatic series of acts. And what was quite extraordinary was looking through Shakespeare, the prescience and richness of his language absolutely accorded with the ideas and concepts and methodology of contemporary sculpture. It was quite uncanny how we could find lines from his plays that really encapsulated the concerns of the artists. So we have 5 acts, and the first is titled after a line from Hamlet, and it starts, "We know what we are, but not what we may be." And I thought that this was really important for a university, because it's a place where young people come and they're moving from adolescence to adulthood, or from unknowing to knowledge. So it is this point of transition, of finding out, of knowing where you were, but now finding out a new you. And we've got a series of sculptures there which are very much about existentialism, states of being, and of moving from one state to another. The second act, which is in this incredible herbaceous garden with its mixture of indigenous and actually exotic tropical plants, is an incredible line, which is, "One touch of nature makes the whole world kin." And it really speaks to the concern that I think many of us share about our disconnection from the natural environment and the tremendous damage that that's causing. And there's many, many artists who want to reconnect with non-human species, with the plant world, many of whom are looking at indigenous cultures as a way of learning from the way that they understand the medicinal and, if you like, the sacred or magical properties of the biosphere. The third act, "Therefore We Tell Our Sorrows to the Stones," is really looking at a different, maybe more poignant, more memorial aspect of statuary. There are carvings there by 2 artists who are really looking at some very painful aspects of history, of displacement, of conflict, of what happens in war. And they're using a very classical form of marble carving. The fourth act, there is speech in there's
speech in my dumbness, language in the very gesture.
And here we've got a rather wonderful world of a parallel reality occupied by 2 figures that are absolutely lost in their own activities. They have a kind of autonomy, slightly uncanny atmosphere around them. And we end in Act 5 in the orchards, where in a way we've gone from very formal cultivated gardens to something which is very rustic, very rural. And there it's, "Thou goddess, thou nature, art my goddess." And nature, in the line from Shakespeare, has a capital N, and it means not just the natural world, but also our own nature, our truth to ourselves. And there we have a series of sculptures which are really about identity, and also a kind of pagan celebration of deities. where we've put together a series of goddesses in a way, and these are totemic figures that pull together and transcend the artist's identity into something which feels universal.
Our desire and our hope is that they will navigate it as an experience and as a journey. The reason that we've used the breadth of the full 26 acres and we've engaged with all the different landscapes at Worcester is to encourage people to travel, to move through the space, to encounter all the different elements that Worcester has to offer, and explore and kind of be outside and be in a, you know, I guess a journey. I think there's so much at the moment nowadays with a turn to the experience and a turn to being back outdoors again and in the landscape. And I think that's why it's so important to us and to the thinking behind the show about this idea of encouraging movement, experience, and seeing it as a performance. And there's a temporality to it. It isn't just a singular one narrative, but it's five. It is the 5 acts. It's 5 different moments to experience. And I hope that it encourages them to spend time and explore and listen and learn and interpret and enjoy. It's the most important thing.
We are at a time of incredible volatility, also at a time when the digital is overwhelming our lives. And I think that there are 2 aspects of this exhibition which are important in that context. The digital is an abstract space which is about swiping and imagery on a screen. And what we see with every one of these sculptures is the tactility of materials. We see a lot of ceramics and a lot of processes which are about casting, of taking the earth, mud, as you called that, clay, transforming that into something. And that's something that I think is something we've seen across young artists everywhere, a return to ceramics, to textiles, to anything to do with making, materiality, tactility. And I think that's a direct consequence of a kind of reaction maybe against the digital. This idea of, well, what is reality? And reconnecting with some very fundamental ideas about gravity and physics and being. And then with regard to the kind of wider world of violence, the tremendous violence that's being unleashed in different parts of the world, the rise of authoritarian governments everywhere, we see here the old idea of the everyman, of ordinary lived experience being elevated into the space of art. We see the impact of conflict in some of the works. We see artists who've themselves experienced displacement, prejudice, marginalization, turning that experience to something very powerful and very relatable. So what they do is that they take something very individualized and they make it universally expressive. And that's why I think that this strange enclave, this oasis of calm and beauty, will give everybody a temporary escape from that terrible world events and a point of reflection, meditation, pleasure, but also perhaps thought about our fellow humans and how we should relate again. And one of the artists, Grace Schwindt, has talked about the importance of touch and of tactility and of, you know, touching other times, other cultures, other pasts, other realities, whether it's of indigenous people or of people from, the artists in the show come from all over the world, from every world continent. And we're all united here in this extraordinary park. So I think we feel that this is an exhibition which we hope will transform people, will give them a respite from that volatility, but also a point of reflection and connection, and that they'll emerge from it feeling very energized and optimistic.